Every 1970s student experienced something at school that would horrify modern parents. Yet those kids became the most independent, capable adults in American history. Every morning started the same way. Kids rushed into classrooms, but their eyes went straight to one spot on the wall: the classroom jobs chart. Teachers made these charts from bright construction paper, usually yellow or orange. Hand-drawn boxes listed all the weekly roles up for grabs: line leader, paper passer, plant waterer, chalkboard cleaner. Each job had a student's name written in careful cursive next to it, but one job stood above all others: messenger. Getting picked as messenger meant you carried the attendance sheet to the main office. You walked those empty hallways alone, folder in hand, feeling like you were on some top-secret mission. Other kids stuck in their seats watched you leave with pure envy. The power was real. Then there were the smaller roles that still mattered. The pencil sharpener got to use that big metal sharpener mounted on the wall. Makes sense, right? The paper monitor handed out worksheets and got to see everyone's work first. Even being the line caboose had its perks. You could make faces at the class behind you. Teachers rotated jobs every Monday morning. Kids would cluster around that chart, checking if their name moved to something better. Some students lobbied hard for their favorite spots. These jobs weren't just busy work, though. They taught teamwork without anyone realizing it. Every kid had a role, a purpose, a reason to belong. Well, until someone discovered the magic happening at the front of the room with chalk dust flying everywhere. Getting chosen for chalkboard duty was like winning the classroom lottery. Teachers would scan the room dramatically, their eyes settling on the lucky student who'd earned this sacred privilege. The big wooden pointer felt powerful in your hands, and that satisfying thunk when erasers hit together created clouds of chalk dust that made everyone cough. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Cleaning those boards was actually hard work. You had to get every corner, every stubborn math equation, every cursive sentence perfectly erased. Miss a spot? The teacher would definitely notice. Some kids developed their own techniques, starting from the top left and working in systematic patterns like tiny janitors. The real prize was getting to use the spray bottle. Most classrooms didn't have them, but when they did, wielding that thing made you feel incredibly grown up. Squirt, squirt, wipe. Teachers trusted you with actual cleaning supplies. That was serious responsibility in the eyes of a 7-year-old. Weekly rotations meant everyone eventually got their turn, though some kids campaigned harder than others. "Can I do it today, please?" became a common classroom chorus. The chalkboard helpers wore their temporary status like a badge of honor, staying after class to make those boards spotless. Before whiteboards took over, these green or black slates dominated every single classroom wall. And speaking of classroom traditions, Friday afternoons brought something even more exciting than eraser duty. Dancing in the school gym meant one golden rule nobody dared break: shoes off, socks only. Teachers guarded that polished floor like treasure, and honestly, they had good reason. Those wooden floors took serious work to maintain their mirror-like shine. Girls showed up in their finest mid-length skirts with layers of petticoats underneath that made them look like walking bells. The lucky ones from bigger cities wore authentic poodle skirts with actual poodles stitched on the fabric. Boys kept it simple with their cleanest jeans, usually Levi's that cost around $7 a pair back then. $7. That was serious money for most families. The gym would transform completely once the lights dimmed and music started playing. Kids who barely talked in math class suddenly became dance partners, spinning around in their stocking feet on that slippery surface. Teachers stood along the walls, making sure nobody got too wild or scratched up their precious floor. These dances created friendships that lasted way beyond elementary school. Shy kids found their confidence, popular kids discovered new friends, and everyone learned those awkward but essential social skills. The combination of nervous excitement and pure fun made gym dances absolutely unforgettable. But dancing wasn't the only tradition that brought students together each day. Every morning brought something even more universal: a practice that united every single classroom across America in ways that might surprise people today. Every morning started the same way across America's classrooms. First came the Pledge of Allegiance, hands over hearts, facing that faded flag in the corner. Then something happened that would shock parents today. Teachers would pull out worn religious records or simply start singing Christian hymns right there in public school. Amazing Grace echoed through hallways. How Great Thou Art filled third-grade classrooms. Nobody questioned it. Nobody complained. Well, almost nobody. The weird part is how naturally it all flowed together. Patriotism and religion blended like peanut butter and jelly. Kids belted out "Jesus Loves Me" with the same enthusiasm they'd shown for the pledge just minutes before. Catholic kids, Jewish kids, kids who rarely saw the inside of any church, everyone joined in. Teachers genuinely believed they were starting the day right. Mrs. Henderson would play her scratchy record player while students swayed along. Mr. Thompson preferred leading songs himself, his deep voice carrying down empty corridors. Some teachers even taught simple harmonies, turning classrooms into impromptu choirs. Parents rarely objected because most shared similar values back then. The separation of church and state seemed less important than building character. Religious songs felt as American as apple pie. But educational winds were already shifting. Legal challenges were brewing in distant courtrooms, ready to change everything. Speaking of changes, teachers had another tool that would soon disappear, one that filled classrooms with a distinctive purple stain magic that kids couldn't resist. The moment fresh worksheets came off the mimeograph machine, every kid in class knew exactly what to do. They'd grab that purple stained paper and take the deepest sniff possible, breathing in those chemical fumes like they were the sweetest perfume on earth. Teachers cranked these machines by hand, creating wet copies that smelled so distinctively chemical that you could identify a mimeograph worksheet from across the room. The purple ink had this intoxicating smell that somehow made even the most boring math problems seem exciting. Well, maybe that's pushing it, but kids definitely loved that ritual sniff. Everyone competed to be first in line when worksheets got passed out. Why? The early copies were still wet with that fresh purple ink, while the last ones would be faded and barely readable. Getting a good copy felt like winning the lottery. The weird part is that teachers never seemed to notice or care that 30 kids were basically huffing chemicals every time they handed out assignments. Makes sense, right? Nobody really thought about it back then. Those purple-stained fingers and that unmistakable smell became the signature of 70s classrooms everywhere. Then there were other daily rituals that demanded just as much attention to detail, especially when it came to something teachers valued above almost everything else in the classroom. Your handwriting said everything about you back then. Teachers didn't just glance at your work and move on. They studied every loop, every slant, every carefully formed letter like they were examining your character itself. Cursive wasn't optional. It was the law of the classroom. Kids spent 30 minutes every morning practicing their Palmer method, tracing those endless rows of connected ovals and swooping letters. The alphabet charts hung above every chalkboard, showing the proper way to form each letter. Teachers prowled the aisles with their red pens, circling sloppy letters and drawing arrows to show where you went wrong. But here's the thing. Neat handwriting got you special treatment. Teachers pulled out green ink pens for the really impressive work. Green ink meant you'd made it. Some schools even handed out actual penmanship medals, little bronze circles that kids wore with more pride than Olympic athletes. The weird part? Everyone actually cared about this stuff. Kids practiced cursive at home, filling entire notebooks with repetitive letter drills. Parents checked homework for neatness before content. A brilliant math answer written sloppily got marked down, while mediocre work in perfect cursive earned praise. Those careful, deliberate strokes taught patience in a world that didn't know it was about to speed up forever. Each letter mattered because permanence mattered. Speaking of things that felt permanent, nothing quite captured classroom magic like the anticipation building when teachers wheeled in those massive projectors. When teachers wheeled in that massive film strip projector, the entire classroom energy shifted. You knew something special was about to happen. The machine itself looked like a piece of space equipment. All metal, knobs, and mysterious mechanical parts that clicked and whirred with authority. But here's the thing that made every kid sit up straight. The beep. That distinctive electronic tone that signaled when to advance to the next slide became the soundtrack of 70s education. Teachers would announce, "Advance," when you hear the beep, like they were giving launch instructions at NASA. Makes sense, right? The responsibility felt enormous. The anticipation built as room lights dimmed and that projector clicked to life. First came the countdown numbers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then the opening slide with its bold letters announcing whatever educational adventure awaited. Whether you were learning about dental hygiene, ancient civilizations, or basic safety rules, that mechanical click-whir sound meant classroom routine was officially suspended. And the weird part is how seriously everyone took their beep listening duties. Kids would lean forward, ears practically twitching, waiting for that electronic signal. Missing a beep meant the entire class saw the same slide too long while someone frantically tried to catch up. The pressure was real. Then there were the inevitable technical difficulties when film strips got tangled or the audio track went out of sync. But even those moments felt magical because they meant more time away from regular lessons and deeper into this special projector world. Being chosen for safety patrol meant you'd officially made it to the big leagues. Those bright orange belts weren't just accessories. They were symbols of power that transformed ordinary 5th and 6th graders into miniature traffic commanders. The shiny silver badges caught sunlight like tiny mirrors, announcing to everyone that these kids had serious business to handle. Every morning, patrol members stationed themselves at street corners with official stop signs, creating human barriers between rushing cars and streams of younger students. The responsibility was real. No pretending here, one wrong move, and someone could get hurt. But here's what made it special: the trust. Teachers didn't just hand out orange belts to anyone. You had to prove yourself first. Good grade, solid behavior, and that mysterious quality adults called leadership potential. Getting selected felt like winning the lottery, except better because everyone could see your victory wrapped around your waist. The younger kids looked up to patrol members with genuine admiration. "There goes Sarah with her safety belt," they'd whisper, watching as she held up traffic with nothing but a wooden stop sign and pure confidence. These orange-belted heroes took their duties seriously, arriving early and staying late to make sure everyone crossed safely. Well, speaking of taking school seriously, there was another way students proved their academic dedication, through those towering reading lab boxes that dominated classroom corners. Those tall, rectangular boxes sitting in classroom corners held more power than most kids realized. The SRA reading lab boxes came color-coded like a rainbow, each shade representing a different skill level that determined your reading fate. Orange meant you were still figuring things out. Green showed decent progress. Blue? Well, that meant you were getting somewhere, but purple and brown boxes, those were the holy grail that only the smartest kids could touch. Inside each box lived hundreds of reading cards, each one a mini mission. You'd pull out a card, read the passage silently, then answer comprehension questions on a separate answer sheet. Teachers would grade these sheets and hand out those magical star stickers when you passed. The weird part is how competitive it made silent reading. Kids would sneak glances at which color box their friends were using. Moving up a level felt like getting promoted to a higher rank in some secret reading army. These boxes lasted forever. Literally, the same cards got passed down through grades for years. Teachers loved them because they required zero prep work. Just point kids toward their color and let them go. Then there's the anticipation of Friday mornings, when something completely different took over classrooms. Circle time was coming, and kids had been planning their special presentations all week long. Friday mornings carried a special buzz that every kid could feel. Show and tell wasn't just another classroom activity, it was the week's grand finale, where ordinary treasures became extraordinary stories. The ritual never changed. Teachers would clear space near the front, and 30 excited kids would plop down cross-legged on scratchy carpet squares. Everyone clutched their prized possession, waiting for their moment in the spotlight. Makes sense, right? When you're 8 years old, that seashell from your beach vacation feels like buried treasure. The variety was absolutely wild. Tommy might bring his pet hamster in a shoebox with air holes punched through the lid. Sarah would unwrap her grandmother's antique music box that played a tinkling melody. Then there was always that one kid who brought something completely unexpected, like a fossilized rock or their dad's army medal from overseas. But here's the weird part. Even the shyest students transformed during show and tell. Kids who barely whispered during math suddenly became animated storytellers, spinning tales about their special items. Teachers knew this was pure gold for building confidence and public speaking skills without anyone realizing they were learning. The anticipation built all week long. Wednesday brought whispered conversations about what everyone planned to share. Thursday meant frantic searches through bedroom drawers for the perfect item. Well, speaking of classroom treasures, some lessons went far beyond simple sharing circles. After mornings filled with chalk dust and mimeograph fumes, students faced one of school's biggest divides. Boys headed left to shop class, girls turned right toward home economics. Nobody questioned it back then. That's just how things worked. Home EC classrooms smelled like vanilla and fabric softener. Girls learned to thread sewing machines, measure flour without spilling, and balance imaginary household budgets on worksheets. The weird part? They actually practiced ironing men's shirts and folding them perfectly. Teachers insisted these skills would matter someday, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Meanwhile, boys discovered the magic of power tools and wood glue. Shop class meant safety goggles that left marks around your eyes and aprons covered in sawdust. Every kid built the same basic projects: wooden toolboxes, simple birdhouses, or metal coat hangers bent into perfect shapes. Taking home something you actually made with your hands felt incredible. Then there were the brave few who crossed traditional lines. Some girls convinced counselors to let them take shop, while occasional boys joined home ec. These rebels faced teasing, but often had the most fun learning unexpected skills. Both classes taught something textbooks couldn't: how to work with your hands and create useful things. Whether stitching a straight seam or sanding wood smooth, students gained confidence through making mistakes and trying again. But speaking of trying again, nothing prepared kids for the intense competition that came with collecting those magical scratch and sniff stickers. Perfect homework meant one thing back then. Your teacher would reach into that magical desk drawer and pull out something better than gold: a scratch and sniff sticker. These weren't your regular boring stickers. Oh no, these little circles of heaven came loaded with scents that could transport you straight to paradise. Strawberry, root beer, chocolate chip cookies, pizza, or even bubble gum. The variety was endless, and kids treated them like rare baseball cards. Teachers knew exactly what they were doing with this reward system. Hand in a flawless math worksheet? Boom. Strawberry sticker headed your way. Help a classmate without being asked? Here comes that coveted root beer scent. The power these tiny adhesive circles held over an entire classroom was absolutely ridiculous. But here's where it got really interesting. Kids would line up during recess, holding out their notebooks like they were displaying museum artifacts. "Smell this one," became the playground battle cry. Everyone wanted a whiff of your latest acquisition. Some students even created elaborate trading systems, swapping duplicate scents for ones they desperately needed. The weird part? Teachers probably bought these stickers for pennies, yet they controlled student behavior better than any lecture ever could. One scratch, one sniff, and suddenly you were motivated to tackle any assignment thrown your way. Speaking of motivation, nothing quite compared to the energy that filled the air when teachers announced it was time to dust off those shiny band uniforms. Friday afternoon meant one thing: uniform inspection. Band directors checked every brass button, every crease, every speck of dust on those shiny black shoes. The tall feathered hats alone cost more than most kids' entire school wardrobe, but nobody complained. Wearing that uniform made you feel like royalty. Parade day transformed sleepy small towns into bustling celebrations. The entire marching band would line up behind the school, instruments gleaming in the sunlight. Trumpets and trombones caught the light just right. Drummers adjusted their snares one final time. Color Guard members practiced their baton tosses, hoping not to drop anything in front of the whole town. Then came the march through Main Street. Every business owner stepped outside to watch. Parents lined the sidewalks with cameras ready. The boom of the bass drum echoed off storefronts, while clarinets and flutes carried the melody down tree-lined streets. Those heavy wool uniforms got incredibly hot under the summer sun, but nobody dared complain. What made it special wasn't just the music. Towns actually stopped for these parades. Traffic waited patiently while high schoolers marched past in perfect formation. Local newspapers printed photos on the front page the next week. Being in the marching band meant representing your entire school, your community, your town's pride. But even band uniforms couldn't compare to the pure chaos and excitement that came with the year's biggest school tradition. Field day arrived like Christmas morning for every kid in school. The anticipation built for weeks as teachers promised sack races, tug-of-war battles, and relay competitions that would determine classroom bragging rights until summer break. Everyone showed up wearing their most athletic gear. Colorful shorts, team t-shirts, and those terry cloth headbands that made you feel like a real competitor. Some kids even wore matching socks because looking the part was half the battle. The morning started with teachers dividing into teams of judges, clipboards in hand, ready to settle any disputes about who crossed the finish line first. Mrs. Henderson always brought her silver whistle, and Mr. Rodriguez had that booming voice perfect for announcing winners. Then there's the legendary tug-of-war rope, thick as a python and rough enough to give you rope burn if you weren't careful. Classes lined up on opposite sides, digging their sneakers into the grass, determined to drag their opponents across that chalk line in the dirt. But the sack races, pure comedy gold. Watching your classmates hop frantically in burlap potato sacks, tumbling and laughing until their sides hurt, created memories that lasted decades. Winners earned those coveted colored ribbons, blue for first place, red for second. And the weird part is, even last place felt like victory because everyone knew ice cream treats were waiting at the finish line.